Welcome back to the Hit Squad. Chad Range. He is Ryan Sutton. This is segment 3, brought to you by the Knuckle Junkies. One of my favorite segments. They ask such great questions, and of course, we want to know what your questions are. You can hit us up on Facebook /Hit Squad 101 ESPN. Twitter handle basically the same thing at Hit Squad 101 ESPN. Get on there, let us know what you're thinking. And as far as the Knuckle Junkies, they have such a good feel of what's going on in the world of MMA. We're going to get right to it. When you consider all the factors, the massive weight cutting, the smaller gloves, knees, elbows, is boxing really much more dangerous than MMA, as many of us have been led to believe?
I don't think so. I think that the logic that MMA has put down for why they are safer is still relevant, and I think that it is the truth. Boxers cut just as much weight as MMA guys. Don't let them think for a minute that they don't. I mean, a lot of the weight cutting tricks that I learned for MMA, besides coming from a wrestling background, were from some boxers. So that's still going to be that's just an elbow in any weight class related sport.
Right.
Also, I mean, you look at these guys who've actually openly spoke about it. Gary Goodridge, who had some very severe problems with brain
head
injuries, head trauma.
Yeah,
sorry,
absolutely.
brain trauma.
Right.
Way to pick that one up.
Gotcha.
But with brain trauma, I mean, he's even openly said all the real damaging stuff that he felt he sustained was through his boxing and kickboxing fights. You're just that repetitive.
That's exactly it.
If you're Floyd Mayweather and you're the best in the world and you're known for counterpunching, guess what? You're still going to get hit a couple hundred times in a night, and that's not even including the couple hundred times you're going to get hit in practice.
That's exactly right. And that's been the thing with boxing. They just say it's just the repeated head blows. Whereas in MMA, I mean, you get them, but when it goes down, it's most of the time, I've seen guys almost get knocked out and kind of fight their way through it and get back and win. But that happens way more in boxing. A guy gets down, you can get knocked down 2 or 3 times in a boxing match. Where in MMA, most of the time it's one and done.
It is, and I love boxing. I love the pageantry. I love the big fight mentality in boxing. You get maybe once in a year this huge mega fight. I love it, but at the end of the day, it is unsafer, or it is more unsafe. You're taking guys who are in the best shape of their lives, and they get a full-fledged concussion and get knocked down, and then you give them 10 seconds to recoup, which, if you've known anything about being in shape, helps you recoup a lot faster.
Right. Yeah.
So it's MMA. I think is still the more safe,
less dangerous than boxing.
Yes, out
absolutely.
of the two comparisons in those two combat sports.
And let's face it, I mean, exactly. It's a combat sport. There's going to be risk in both of them.
Correct.
Absolutely. Well, moving on, we got the UFC middleweight. Tim Kennedy suggests if the UFC wants to crack down on cheaters, fighters with TRT, now that's testosterone replacement treatment exemptions, should not be allowed to receive post-fight bonuses. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I disagree. I think that if these guys are doing what they're allowed to do within whatever commission they're allowed to do it in, and they're not getting stripped of a win, then why wouldn't they be entitled to their bonuses? I think Kennedy might be a little sour on this, which seems strange to me because I've seen him walk around in the offseason with some pretty huge arms when he's not fighting, so I don't know why he's throwing stones at the TRT situation. But I think if guys fail a drug test or they fail what they're allowed to get away with, then you strip them of their win, you strip them of their bonuses, but don't take a guy's. If a guy were to be on antibiotics and they allow it, what, does he not get a win bonus too?
Exactly. Yeah, I would agree 100% with that.
Yeah.
Now,
it's a slippery slope.
It is a slippery slope, and I think you phrased it perfectly. If it fits in between what they allow, then by all means, it should be fair. All's fair in love and war.
Correct.
So I would agree with you on that one. Now, this is a great question for you because you and I had just talked about this because this almost puts you right where you're at. Okay, so you're a young fighter whose goal is to reach the UFC. Are you better off signing with an organization like RFA, Legacy, or CFA rather than Dana White's nemesis, Bellator?
I think if you're a young fighter, you really need to assess your goals. What are you in the sport for? A lot of guys get fixated on the UFC because it is the marquee name.
Absolutely.
But if if you're a young fighter and you want to provide for a family, someday, provide for a family someday, if you want to make a little bit longer term out of a fight career, you go with what's going to be the best opportunity. Yep. I feel it is. I've heard Bellator's contracts are very restrictive for a lot of these guys who aren't young fighters. I hear it's pretty much nails in the coffin on going to any other organization. So these other organizations will feed you into the UFC a little better.
Right.
But, at the end of the day, you've got to look at what your fight goals are. I mean, if you're dead 100% UFC or nothing, then yeah, I probably wouldn't sign with Bellator, but it's...
I would agree. Yeah. I hear exactly what you're saying. And I think you kind of nailed it. And I tell you what, just recently, the Bellator tournament, championships, $100,000 paydays for those winners.
Yeah.
Not bad money there. And, that gives those guys something to shoot for. And I guess this would be the question. As a fighter, pretty much it's all about the money, wouldn't it be?
There's a lot of pride that goes into what you do.
Yep.
You take, we talked to Tyron, he's got a heart, the mentality of a champion. He belongs to be there, or he belongs there. That's where he expects to be, So he wasn't talking about money in any of those segments, but yeah, it's prize fighting. You're fighting for a prize. You have to go with what's going to be the best opportunity for you financially. Very few fighters at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, would take less money if they could make more money.
Yeah, the only difference I can see is would be endorsement deals. If you're a UFC fighter, I think you're more likely to get people to, we got a UFC fighter, as our spokesperson. It may just sound a little better than being a, Bellator fighter to your average person out there.
It's interesting because there's been a real lock and key on a lot of these endorsement things. We don't know how much a lot of these guys make on endorsements. We don't know what their deals are. You see Michael Chandler in Bellator signed with Dave and Buster, so he has their. Some people might know how much he's making. I don't. There is a marquee factor in that. But really, what the best thing to do there is to surround yourself with people who know how to make money and know how to market. If you're a Bellator guy and you surround yourself with a gym, with savvy people that understand the business, understand promotions, they can surround you with people to be comfortable. But yeah, it makes life a lot easier if you have a big name attached to you.
That's a great point. A lot of that comes down to the fighter's manager and the connections and what he knows of the fight. Mm-hmm. Well, here we are. We just talked about the UFC 167, and here's the question I think that anyone would pose here. Who does a loss hurt worse as far as their career goes, Rashad Evans or Josh Koscheck, and why do you think so? That's a tough one.
It's a tough one. You could argue either way. If Rashad Evans loses, he's potentially facing retirement.
Yep.
Really, he's been a champion. He's succeeded. The mentality of those guys when they start falling down the totem pole isn't to keep fighting. It's to kind of put a stamp on your legacy.
Right.
So that's interesting. And Josh Koscheck, he falls way down the totem pole rankings. He's already kind of at this point out of title contention. But he's a kind of guy that I think is willing to fight, is willing to keep up going with his career. He's always been a good UFC company guy. Yeah. So I would see him hanging around, doing what's going to be good for the company, and taking some fights that could benefit him financially.
And someone would probably pick him up.
Yes.
I would say you have a good boy. It's a great point. Rashad's been a champion, so I think he can just hang it up and, hey, you've had a great career, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I guess, it would kind of not, Chael Sonnen kind of knocks him into retirement. So, but I would say for Josh, who maybe isn't quite such a household name, that the loss would be more, detrimental to his career because he can't say, hey, I was a champion at one time.
No.
He would be that kind of situation. But good questions from the Knuckle Junkies. I always enjoy those. So, coming up next, we do have a great treat for you. We're going to be talking to a guy who is fighting on the UFC 167 this weekend in Las Vegas. Our interview with Tyron Woodley coming up after the break on 101sports.com.